Last man standing. World's last flying boat base. Rose Bay, Sydney, Australia. This video largely draws upon information from this new book. For many thousands of years before the British started colonising Australia in 1788 as a penal colony, Rose Bay was a special place for Australia's First Nation Aboriginals. By the early 1900s, they had been largely forced away from the area. Rose Bay, Sydney, Australia, today. The seaplane base today is located on the site of the original flying boat base, that is at the top of Line Park, which juts out into the bay, bottom centre of the picture. Prior to Rose Bay opening as a flying boat base in 1938, there was very considerable aviation activity in Australia from 1909, mainly by land aircraft, but there is a record of a Farman hydroplane, shown in the picture, making an emergency landing in Rose Bay in 1914. Before Rose Bay's opening in 1938, UK Imperial Airways, IAL, and Australian Qantas operated land aircraft carrying mail and passengers from 1934. IAL covered UK, London, Singapore, and Qantas covered Singapore, Australia, Brisbane. It was the longest air service in the world, 12,754 miles, 12 to 13 days, usually daytime only, and 31 stopovers. The flying was not comfortable, cramped, no cabin crew, just sandwiches from the pilots, and multiple aircraft transfers. First flight launch shown in the picture. To overcome the lack of land airports, to increase power, range and payload, and to provide greater passenger comfort, IAL commissioned Short Brothers in the UK to produce flying boats, the world's first company dedicated exclusively to making aircraft from 1910. After an early two-engine model, Short Brothers produced the famous four-engine Empire class, shown in the picture. IAL bought 28, followed by 6 for Qantas in 1938. The IAL and Qantas Empire flying boats offered only one passenger class, first class, with a fare equal to a year's salary at the time, affordable only by the wealthy and government bureaucrats. But despite the onboard luxury, including a smoking room, a promenade deck, and room for quoits and golf putts, a reduced time of 10 days, and luxury hotels of an evening, the reality was often quite different. Severe turbulence at flight level below 10,000 feet, no weather radars then. Arriving at the city offices before dawn, delays and cancellations due poor weather, and getting wet travelling to and from the aircraft on small boat tenders. After much debate, Sydney, not Brisbane as was then being used, was decided as the terminus of the UK-Australia, IAL Qantas, flying boat mail and passenger route. After even more debate, competition, complaints, reviews etc., Rose Bay in Sydney was chosen as the ideal flying boat base. The picture shows Rose Bay in 1937 before construction of the flying boat base on the right side of Line Park jutting out into the bay. Building was completely finished at Rose Bay late 1939. Terminal and control tower, huge hangar, pier, slipway etc. The terminal and control tower were available from August 1938. The picture shows the terminal and control tower in 1938 with the hangar being built behind. Earlier in 1938, even before the terminal was completed late 1938, and the hangar in late 1939, IAL Qantas flying boats started arriving in and departing from Rose Bay. The base was officially opened in August 1938, about the time of this picture in which the terminal and control tower were complete, the pier under construction, and work not yet started on the hangar behind the terminal. There is an enclosed swimming area just to the right of the white terminal building. The flying boats departed Rose Bay 3 times a week. The 10-day trip over 13,000 miles had around 30 stops between Rose Bay, Australia, and Southampton, UK, including 9 overnight stops and numerous other refueling stops. Short Sunderland, similar to the Empire, at YSRE. Flying Boat Base. Microsoft Flight Simulator World War II freeware scenery. Rose Bay Flying Boat Base, as it was in World War II. After departing Rose Bay, Sydney, the IAL Qantas flying boats refueled and overnighted along the east coast of Australia. They departed Australia after refueling here at remote Darwin, Northern Territory. The route between Australia and the UK involves some exotic locations for refueling and/or overnighting, like here on the Sea of Galilee, near Tiberias, in then Palestine. In 1940, Tasman Empire Airways Limited, TEAL, began using a short Empire flying boat to fly airmail for the UK from here, Mechanics Bay, Auckland, New Zealand, to Rose Bay. By the time of the TEAL flights, the IAL Qantas arrangement began to hit troubled waters. Airmail reached unprecedented levels, sometimes displacing passengers. Accidents grounded several flying boats. The Empire's payload was lower than expected due to design flaws and environment issues such as exposure to saltwater, and maintenance was hindered by lack of facilities. In general, poor operational performance and inappropriate choice of aircraft were becoming apparent. But then we had World War II. In the war, Rose Bay became an Air Force base. There were many flying boats, with Catalinas, shown here, and Sutherlands being particularly successful. The war required the Empires, and only one survived. Rose Bay flying boats served around Australia and New Guinea. The war brought the old flying boat route between Australia and the UK to a halt, but BOAC, formerly IAL, and Qantas kept up an alternate route through South Africa. Rose Bay freeware World War II scenery. War, as the Air Force moved out of Rose Bay, BOAC, formerly IAL, and Qantas resumed their Australia-UK service using short Sunderlands, the trip now taking just 5 days. But land airports and jet aircraft quickly eclipsed the old flying boats. The last BOAC, later British Airways, and Qantas flight left Rose Bay for the UK in early 1949. Qantas flying boats continued some other international routes for a little longer. In the meantime, in the late 1940s, Transoceanic Airways, TOA, and Barrier Reef Airways, BRA, started operating wartime Catalinas and Sunderlands from Rose Bay for tourist flights along Australia's east coast and its islands, and to New Zealand and a range of Pacific islands. Era began for Rose Bay in the early 1950s when Ansett Flying Boat Services, AFBS, took over TOA, BRA, the remaining Qantas flying boats, and the Rose Bay facilities. Ansett operated scheduled flying boat services mainly along the Queensland coast, the Great Barrier Reef and its holiday islands, and to its most important destination, Lord Howe Island, located 800 kilometres out in the Tasman Sea. Over time, the cost to Ansett of running flying boats and the cost of providing services at Rose Bay became increasingly prohibitive. The last straw was the building of a land airport on Lord Howe Island, shown here, in late 1974, and Ansett's AFBS then ceased operation. Rose Bay became the world's last flying boat base. The Rose Bay flying boat facilities were gradually demolished during the 1970s as the area slowly returned to recreation, dining and boating. Plans for Rose Bay's redevelopment were made and dropped and argued over for years. In the meantime, seaplane services grew haphazardly, and sometimes acrimoniously, between competing operators. Finally, in 2006, two entrepreneurial operators got together, bought out all the other operators to form one business, Sydney Seaplanes. With a new terminal, new dock, new restaurants, and new flying boat museum, Sydney Seaplanes and Rose Bay together continue to develop into a major seaplane base, currently operating de Havilland Beavers, shown here, and Cessna Caravans. Microsoft Flight Simulator modern-day freeware scenery. Sydney Seaplanes now operates a range of sightseeing flights in and around Sydney. Let's look at some. Sydney City, Opera House, Bridge, etc. Rose Bay Seaplane Base today. Dramatic cliffs at entry to Sydney Harbour. Cottage Point Inn, north of Sydney. Back home to Rose Bay. Next, we'll finish off with real footage of the last known short Sunderland still flying in 1996. Short Sunderland, Fantasy of Flight Collection, Florida, 1996. Believed to be now in storage.
So they'll probably taxi up downwind of the buoy if that's the one they're going to use.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.